Hi guys, welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades and I'm here to get you started on Unit 22, the TURE ending. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need your purple book open to page 137. You will also need some colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark on my board, you should be marking on your page. Please save room for a key as well. You'll notice I've already gone ahead and broken our words into syllables using these brown vertical lines, and I've also used pink check marks to mark off the stressed syllables. So if you'd like to pause the video right now to add your own syllable breaks and stressed syllables, feel free to do that now. All right, so we have spent several weeks now talking about derivational suffixes. Remember, those are endings, those are chunks of letters that are added to the end of a word to change its part of speech. So last week we talked about the derivational suffix ic. We noticed that we can take a noun like hero and change it to an adjective like heroic by adding ic. We can take a noun like symbol and change it to an adjective, symbolic, by adding ic. Well, this week we're going to do the same thing with TURE. In some of our words this week, we are going to be able to find a verb, an action like depart or expend, and we're going to be able to change them to nouns by adding that TURE ending. In other examples, we're going to have nouns, but it'll be a little bit trickier to find a verb hiding in there because these words will be formed by taking a Latin root and adding the TURE ending to it. We will also see a few words this week that are adjectives and verbs, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. Right now, I'd like to read the list. Please repeat after me. Adventure, agriculture, amateur, culture, departure, expenditure, furniture, immature, lecture, literature, manufacture, mature, miniature, nurture, posture, premature, puncture, signature, structure, and temperature. Did you hear that TURE sound over and over? Great. Okay. You'll notice that I went ahead and found some prefixes already. We've got some great prefixes this week, so I thought this would be a good review for us. Starting with DE in departure. When you see DE at the beginning of a word, it often means away or from. So if you think about a departure, that is the point when you leave or go away from a place. So for instance, we might say the airplane is getting ready for departure. It's getting ready to leave. So D means away. Expenditure has the prefix X. Whenever we see EX, it has something to do with out, right? Like the exterior of a building, or exhale means to breathe out. When you expend money, you're spending out money. You're handing it out to buy stuff that you need. Im can mean not. So in this word, if somebody is immature, it means they are not mature. Pre means before. So if a baby is born prematurely, it means the baby is born too soon, right? It's born before it's had enough time to grow in its mother's belly, and therefore it might be extra small. It might need some extra medical care because it came before it was ready, okay? So D, X, Im, and pre, all great prefixes. So we're going to mark them here. All right, what I'd like to do next is find some of our nouns this week. So I just talked about departure, right? When you depart, when you leave the airport on a plane, that is your departure, okay? Departure is the noun form. When you expend money on things you need to buy, those are your expenditures. There's our suffix again. Notice here we had to add a couple extra letters. Furniture is also a noun. You know what furniture is, right? Chairs, tables, couches. This is not a verb. There's no verb to furnish, but if we go back and look at our old Latin or our old French, we'll see there is a verb very similar that means to furnish or to put furniture in a place. A lecture can also be a noun, right? Lect is not a verb, but it is a Latin root. And whenever you see the root lect, it has something to do with reading. So if a person gives a lecture, they are standing up at the podium, maybe reading from their speech. Literature is also a noun. Again, there's not a verb that's going to pop out at us, but we know that anytime we see L-I-T-E-R, it has something to do with letters and learning and books. So literature would be books. A person who is literate can read books. Posture is another noun. Now, if you think back a few weeks ago, we learned about the Latin root pos, P-O-S, which means to place or put something, right? Think of position, right? Or compose or repose. So posture has to do with the way you place yourself in space, right? If you have good posture, you stand up tall. If you have poor posture, maybe you hunch over, right? But this posture, I'm just going to say posture, the way you stand, starts with a Latin root, and then we add our U-R-E ending. A signature. Well, we've talked about this before. There are lots of words like sign, resign, assign, signal. All of these have to do with marking something or signaling something. So your signature is your marking. It's the way you signify that something was looked at or read by you. And then structure, that's another noun. Struct, can't remember if we've talked about this, but this is a Latin root that means build. So a structure is something that has been built. Like a barn is a structure. A garage is a structure. Temperature also comes from Latin, right? Anything to do with, if you temper something, you control it so it's not too extreme. Temperate parts of the earth are not too hot and not too cold, so temperature is related to that as well. I skipped a couple. Adventure is a noun, right? Advent has to do with, again, you can trace this back to words that mean coming or beginning. So an adventure is a new beginning. It's something that you're excited for. Agriculture. Agra has to do with farming. Cult has to do with growing. So this agriculture has to do with growing stuff in a field, right? Like on a farm. And then culture starts with that same root, right? Your culture is, that's like the common ways that people act, people speak, people dress, the foods people eat, the way they talk, their traditions. Those are all things that have grown among a certain group of people over an amount of time. So your culture is kind of the way the people in your world have grown together in predictable ways, if that makes sense. Did I get all the nouns? I mean, you can see we have a lot of them. Adventure, agriculture, culture, departure, expenditure, furniture, lecture, literature, posture. Puncture can be used as a noun, right? If your tire, your bicycle tire gets a hole in it, it has a puncture. So that could be a noun as well. All right, so all of these words, everything in green, is a noun, and they either started as a verb and switched to a noun, or they started as a Latin root and then switched to a noun when that TURE ending was added to them. Okay, we have the word amateur here, just for contrast. I just want you to notice that has a different spelling. I'm not really sure why. An amateur is a person who is just learning how to do something. So we could say an amateur is a beginner. Like, I'm an amateur photographer. I can take pictures. I have a fancy camera, but I don't really know how to use it. People are not going to pay me to take photos of their wedding or their new babies because I'm just an amateur. So that's kind of like the opposite of a professional. Just notice, even though it's pronounced exactly the same, the spelling is a little bit wonky. It's a little bit different. All right, let's talk about some adjectives here. So here's one we're going to see a lot. If a person is mature, that means they are grown up and they act grown up, at least to the age that they're expected to be. So a mature 10-year-old would use good manners. They would think about other people's feelings. They would make safe choices, right? But an immature 10-year-old might have tantrums. They might stick their tongue out and cry like a baby. Those would be immature behaviors, right? So that is an adjective. Here's mature, right? Sometimes we think of mature also as being ripe. So if you go to the apple orchard and you start picking apples, you don't want to pick anything that doesn't look ripe. If it's still green and it's supposed to be red, you need to give it a little more time to mature, to ripen. And then we also have premature. If something's premature, it's happening too soon, right? So let's say I was running for mayor of my town and the final votes have not been counted yet. It would be premature for me to tell everyone I'm the winner, right? It's too soon. I don't know if I won or not. They're not even done counting the vote. So if something is premature, it's too soon, okay? We do have another adjective on our list this week. Have you spotted it? Besides immature, mature, and premature, it is this word, miniature. And miniature you can think of as tiny. Most of the time we just shorten it to mini, right? So maybe you have mini Lego figures, or maybe instead of eating a big candy bar, you eat the mini size, the miniature Snickers bar, the miniature Milky Way bars. So those are adjectives. And then we have a few words this week that can be used as verbs. So, for instance, I said that a lecture is a noun, right? You might go to your local community college to listen to a lecture about local politics, or to listen to a lecture about healthy eating choices. But you can also lecture someone, right? I told you not to eat that. Now you have a bellyache. You shouldn't be eating so much junk food. You are lecturing a person. So that's a verb. Manufacture is a verb. When you manufacture stuff, you make stuff in a factory. You make stuff in a factory, okay? Mature is an adjective, but it can also be used as a verb, right? Instead of picking the fruit, we give it time to mature on the branch or mature on the vine. Kids mature, they grow at different rates. Nurture is another verb. If you nurture someone, you take care of them. So parents nurture their children. You might nurture your little sister. You might nurture your pet. You might nurture your plants. If you're really good about watering your plants and making sure they have plenty of sunlight and fertilizer, you are nurturing them. So when you nurture someone, what you're doing is you're helping them grow to their potential, right? So it's not just about making sure a child is fed or a child has a warm bed, but it's also encouraging them to follow their dreams and take risks and learn new things, right? So when you nurture someone, you take care of them so they can grow in healthy ways. Puncture, I said it's a noun, right? If you have a puncture in your tire, but you can also puncture something, right? If you poke a hole in it. I've heard about people who've punctured a lung before. They maybe were in a car accident and somehow they had a hole poked into their lung. But yes, you can puncture a tire, you can puncture all kinds of things. I think that's it. So, how did I mark these? I just underlined, I guess, our verbs. I just put a V next to them, I guess. Okay, so couple quick things I want to talk about. The biggest mistake I see kids make is when they're trying to spell a word that ends with cher, they try to spell that chunk C-H-E-R. Don't do that. The only time you're going to see C-H-E-R is when you take a word that already ends with ch and you add ER to it. So a teacher is a person who teaches, right? A catcher is the person on your baseball team who catches. You might be rich and then you write another song and sell it, and now you are richer. Okay? The only time you're going to see that cher is when you add ER to a word that already ends with ch. The rest of the time you're going to use T-U-R-E, and the exception would be amateur. Okay? The last thing I wanted to talk about, when you get to page 140, I have a new Latin root for you. FACT and FECT. fact and FECT both mean to make or do. So think about a factory. It's a place where we make stuff, right? When you manufacture stuff, you make stuff. It's funny because man originally comes from hands, right? Think of like a manicure. So when you manufacture stuff, it means that you make it by hand. It's kind of funny because now when you go to a factory, most things are not made by hand. Instead, they're made by machines. But there's our root hiding in there. When you get to page 140, you'll see other words like effective, right? If something's effective, that means you've been able to do it well. A benefactor is somebody that does good things for other. If something's perfect, it's been done really well. So what I want you to do is take these words, use your knowledge of prefixes and suffixes in parts of speech, and then match these words with their definitions below. All right? That's all I have for you today. Good luck, and I will see you next time.